Shalom everyone. Hello again. We're going to talk about the zoom tool here. Zoom tool is very, very easy to do. Hit Z for zoom. Z, the letter Z, which I'm talking about this guy over here. Right? Press Z. And if you click, you zoom in. And if you hold Alt down on the keyboard and click, you zoom out. You can also do a marquee selection by clicking and dragging around, and it'll zoom in to frame that area. Now, something else that will happen is as you start zooming in, I don't know if you saw this on your screen, but my screen started to become pixelated. It appeared pixelated. And I zoom out, and that grid goes away. Your Photoshop isn't breaking, it's actually showing you that you're entering into pixel mode, and that you can actually see the individual pixels holding the one color at a time. That's incredibly helpful, believe it or not. But if you're zooming in and you want to get rid of this grid for whatever reason, just hit Control H. Control H. Control H will help you get rid of the grid. So let's go ahead and put that down here. Control H equals hide. Okay. Grids are another good thing for this lesson. So you might not actually have your ruler set up. So if you have your canvas displayed and you hit Control R, a ruler will pop up. If I right click on the ruler, it'll say, how do you want to measure this thing? Well, because this document's 1920 by 1080 at 72 dpi, everything's being measured in pixels. If I was actually doing US paper, because I'm having to print something for school or something, I would switch it to inches and I can actually measure what's happening. Excellent thing to have. So I can click and drag and actually have a guide. And I can click and drag this way too and have a guide. Excuse me. So if I hit Z and I zoom in, as you can see, it starts to pixelate, right? I can zoom out. Now it kind of handles the pixelation issue, but what if I'm dealing with both? See, it just pixel mode just activated. If I hit Control H, it hides both the guides and the grid, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. Something else that will help you, because we've went over the selection marquee already, this tool, let me go ahead and make it a darker color so you can see what's going on. Okay. Oh, see, it's a locked layer. Let's do that again. Okay, so if I select something, I can hit Control H and it'll actually toggle on and off what I have selected. That's also very helpful because those marching ants can sometimes be a pain in the butt and they can get in the way of what you're trying to do with your work. So that's the grid for you. Something else that I like to do in terms of a grid, let me see if this document will open fairly quickly. This is our horse ranch game. This would be a very, very good example to show you what's going on in terms of bordering. So what I have set up, oh, this is perfect. Control H. Okay, so this is my grids and guides. So when I set up this page, I needed to make sure that I'm square. I need to make sure that my composition's flowing in the right way. And one of the very small things that I do, like right in the beginning, is I like to set up a border. And so what I do is I set up the border just by simply holding Shift, taking my marquee tool and clicking and dragging. And this will make a perfect square. If I let go of Shift, it'll basically get a rectangle that's at my discretion. I can do that similarly with a circle too. So if I hit Shift M, so this is like a bit of an advanced marquee lesson. So if I click and drag, I can have my marquee tool, but if I hold Shift down, I'll get a perfect circle when I draw. Okay. You can also hold Control Alt Shift, Control Shift. Wait, hold on a second. Oh, okay. So you've got to click and drag, you've got to hold Shift and hold Alt, and the circle will actually draw in the center rather than off to the side. All right, so that's helpful as well. Okay, but anyways, what I was saying was, in setting up this border, I can click and drag, and hold shift down, and I got the square. So I can put the square in the corner, and then last night, I guess what I was doing is I was using this size as a square. So when I made this shape, I just clicked and dragged the guide and put it on the right side over here. This is called a guide, and it's also snapping, right? And then I took a second guide and I snapped it here. So what it did is it set up the border for the left side of my screen and the bottom of my screen. So then what I do is I zoomed all the way out. Now notice my marquee selection is still active. And I take my little marching ants and I take this little square and I put it all the way up in the upper right hand corner, and I zoom in. And then I put my little guide from the top here like this, and then I put my other one over here like this. So now I've got this awesome border all the way around. Now what does this border do? Well, it helps me set up my icons, man. So I can come over here and I can know, okay, like this icon is not touching the bar. I know the apex of this diamond is touching the guide, and that's what I want. Why? Because I come over here on this side, and look at that. Her icon is touching the guide. So this way I know, of course, look at this. Her logo stops there, and mine should stop over here. So my diamond actually stops over here. So how come I didn't stop with these flags? Why did I allow the flags to overlap? It has to do with the way that my icon is designed. If I actually move it up, it's going to throw off the balance of branding. So I don't want to do that. I actually reduced all of the branding about an extra 20% last night. It actually helps quite a bit with focusing on what everybody should be paying attention to. So as you can see, the guides over here at the top, right? I'm fighting two issues right now. I've got to fight with the bottom border of this banner. And so the question is, do I actually use the marquee top, or do I take the distance between here and use the middle like that? Well, what I decided to do is I used the top and bottom because I learned that most websites actually go from the bottom. It's about this size, this many pixels from here to here. So I used what everybody else is doing as a guide, and I just split the difference right down the middle. It didn't affect my border. It didn't affect my layout or throw anything off. So that's the practical use of why you would want to use a guide. Another perfect example of why you would want to use a guide is in laying out icons. So last night I was having a difficult time trying to find the center of all of this stuff. So how do you find the center? How do you make sure all of this is right? Use guides. Let's just go ahead and do this available now thing. Let's break it down. So I started with this orb. Now this orb starts at this pixel and ends at this pixel. But because this is all one layer, it wants to go from here to here. It wants to include the shadow as the center. So what I had to do in my first time around is I had to draw a line right through the middle. But how did I know it was the middle? Right? This is where guides are so important. So I'm going to use my marquee tool, the rectangle one. I'm going to start at the top of the pixel, right? So about right here. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. And tap down once, and then draw a line with my guide. Sorry. Bang. That's where I know dead center is. So now I gotta go take a look at my trophy. Okay, so where's my trophy? Whoops, not the red button. There's my trophy. And make sure, where's the center? So the center line is going to be between the bottom of this stroke to the top of this stroke, and you would think I would want to put it in the middle, but I didn't. I wanted it to be offset a little bit, so I knew that I needed my guide left and right. That was important. So that's good. Just for framing, I wanted it to be sitting on the same ground but in the foreground, so you tap it down a little bit. Now you understand, you're starting to understand depth. That next, well, I had the circle text. So if I move this layer, I don't really have a radial center point. So if I grab both of these and hit Control T, see, I'm actually off a couple pixels. And that's why we do this. See, your eye wants to do some things, and then you've got to do what's right mathematically. So this was a perfect lesson for this example. So I hit enter to commit to that. My leaves are good, so I'm pretty good. I know I did that. I did all of that together last night. So I was up till 3 working on this. I really like how this piece came out, by the way. Very happy with everything. So practical guides. So now you understand. Let me save this up. I'll be due later today. So if I want to hide the guides, I can just hit Control H. Okay, hiding the guides is Control H. And now you guys can actually see like how many layers is acceptable, right? I think this is a good practical understanding of how many layers actually takes to do a document. So like I have a rollout layer over here. So this is like default with a, you know, before you press the button, this is where we want the button to be approximately at. You press it and then the menu slides out. So that's helpful. You know, understanding that the horse, where you at? Horse is on a different layer, right? You got these different icons on different layers. We've got the header and the copy text on a different layer. We've got the other rollout header on a different layer. And then, of course, we got all our branding on a different layer. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an example of what's entailed in a document like this. Okay. So that, I think, is going to wrap up zooming, right? To sum up, hit Z, click, hold Alt, zoom out. If you zoom in too much, it'll start to pixelate. Well, you won't see it there, but you'll see it over here. It just you'll want to hit Control H to toggle all of this on and off. Control H. You also want to deal with guides by clicking and dragging a guide out. You can do it from the top to the bottom or the left to the right. That's about it. Shalom.